to everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before I even introduce myself, a few housekeeping. Please keep yourself muted. We're going to have time for questions later on after the panel discussion and the presentation by our attorney. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, and maybe this is something we can write in the chat. So any questions, start sending them there. We're going to start answering them at the end. I do see another Graciela Carrillo. Is that Yunlog?
Is that me?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I couldn't find my own name, that's why.
I know, that's okay. So I'm going to start introducing everyone because I see that the numbers keep coming in. We had about 170 people that registered. We don't know how many are going to show up, but with the amount of people we have right now, I'm very happy. Thank you for joining us. My name is Graciela Carrillo. I'm one of the co-founders of the Immigrant Architects Coalition. With us, we have Sash Kiterwe. She is the secretary of the coalition. We also have Oyuki Sulu, a director, and Gloria Clotter, also director of the EAC, and our other co-founder, Yun Lok Law. He's right now Graciela Carrillo on the screen.
I don't even know how to change it, but
It's okay, don't
nice
worry.
meeting everyone.
So today we have a really great panel. First of all, I want to just inform everyone the Immigrant Architects Coalition is a non-profit organization that we co-founded to help and provide resources for immigrant architects. And that mission is so that you all can achieve a prosperous career in this country. We do that through mentoring, through public speaking, publishing books. We also have a podcast. And now we have these meetings quarterly. So keep an eye on the next meeting. We're going to have 4 meetings throughout the year. Today we have a great panel of speakers. We're going to talk about navigating visas as immigrant architects. The first speaker that I'm going to introduce is attorney Michael Lehak, ESQ, founding partner of Lehak Philippa. He has spent over a decade of committed work to reuniting families and helping clients to pursue opportunities to live and work in this country. He's been advocating and litigating since 2004 for clients on almost every type of immigration issues. Michael earned his undergraduate degree in political science from the University of Florida and his Juris Doctor from Georgetown University Law Center in Washington, D.C. He's also proficient in Mandarin and completed further studies at Taiwan Normal University in Taipei and also at Shaanxi Normal University in Xi'an, China. I'm sure I did say everything wrong, but forgive me. Our next speaker is Dorota Gokal, Associate AIA, Lead AP, BD plus C. She's originally from Poland, and she's a project manager and senior designer at N2 Design and Architecture in Long Island, New York. She first moved in the United States in 2013 as an exchange program student, and now she has almost 9 years of experience, and she's pursuing architectural license in New York State, and she recently got her O1 visa, so she's going to share with us her experience with the O1 visa. Our next speaker is Rufei Wang, adjunct faculty at the Parsons School of Design, originally from China. She moved to the States in 2014 to pursue a master's degree in energy and environments from Harvard University. And since then, she has worked as a sustainability consultant at Atelier 10 for many years. And she also teaches as an adjunct faculty at the Parsons School of Design. She obtained her green card through the EB1, and she's going to share with us her path with that process. And lastly, our speaker, Samida Mahan, Associate AIA, Lead AP. She is originally from India, and she works as a design coordinator at HDR. She's a graduate of Curvia in India and Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. Her journey as a first-generation immigrant and a woman of color in the architecture, engineering, construction industry has been challenging and rewarded. And she recently received the O1 visa. So she's going to share with us that path. And I am from Colombia, and I came here with an H-1B visa. So if we have time, I can share a little bit about that too, but I'm more focused on sharing Rufe, Dorota, and Samida's paths. So first, we're going to start with our attorney, Michael. Michael, please take it away with a presentation about different visa types. Thank you.
All right, fabulous. So it's nice to meet everybody. So I am Michael. I have the firm Lehack Philippa. We've been exclusively practicing immigration law for 20 years, my partner and I, and we represent quite a lot of architects and architectural designers in O1 visas, H1B, NIW, EB1 cases. And I'm happy to obviously to discuss your specific situations with you privately. But right now, what we're going to be talking about is sort of general information about visa. Visa that we do the most is the O1B visa. So just to sort of start off by differentiating, there's an O1A and an O1B visa. So O1A is for extraordinary ability in business, science, academics, and athletics, whereas O1B is for extraordinary ability in the artistic and creative fields. Now, this is an incoherent distinction, to be sure, and many jobs, most modern jobs, involve technical and creative elements. And obviously, architects and architectural designers are absolutely, people who cross over between O1A and O1B. Now, with that in mind, most of our clients for the O1B visa because it does give more freedom when it comes to changing jobs, adding jobs, specifically with an agent sponsor. So typically when we discuss the O1 visa with clients, we discuss eligibility, we discuss sponsorship, and we also discuss timing. But very often if a client has a question for me at first, it's something along the lines of, so you've seen my resume, what do you think? Do you think I can qualify for the visa? And the fact is that it's very difficult for any honest attorney to look at somebody's one-page resume and tell them whether they're a good candidate for a visa like the O1. Now, when it comes to a visa like the H-1B, it's the requirements are not as stringent as the O1, in as much as the H-1B doesn't require extraordinary ability per se. Now, it does require some luck because you have to win a lottery because the H-1B visa is capped. There's only a certain amount of H-1B visas per year. And now the O1 visa is not. So you can apply anytime.
Michael, I'm sorry to
Yes.
interrupt you. Can you maybe position your microphone closer to you? It's cutting off a lot of what you're saying.
Okay, that's a shame. Okay, maybe I can stop using Bluetooth. Maybe that would help. I'm not sure.
Why
Um,
don't we try?
all right, is this better?
Oh my God, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, sounds good. Well, let's see. Let me turn up the volume here. So, what I was saying is that the O1 requires extraordinary ability, whereas the H1B requires showing that you've got a degree in the specialty occupation, you've got an employer who is going to be sponsoring you and indeed paying the fees for the H1B application. So the H-1B does require the employer to pay legal and government fees for an application. The O-1B visa does not. So that's one reason why an O-1 visa can be more attractive to employers in as much as they don't have to pay all of the fees. And one of the reasons why with an O-1 visa, the employer doesn't have to pay the fees is that you're allowed to have more than one employer with the O-1 visa at the same time or under an agent sponsor. So hardly fair to make that one employer pay for all the fees. So again, the advantages of the O1 are you can apply anytime. It's not capped. You're allowed to pay the fees. The employer's not required to pay the fees. On the other hand, what you have to show is this thing called extraordinary ability.
So what that means, just to boil it down to the most simple sort of explanation, leading roles working with top clients on distinguished projects. So again, the immigration officer is not someone who is in your field. They're not an architect or an architectural designer. So the officer is not qualified to look at your work and judge your ability. And that's true whether you're applying as an architectural designer or a dancer or a chef. Again, the officer is not someone who has the sort of ability to engage with your work and make that judgment. So what we have to show for an O-1B visa application is essentially the pertinent facts about our clients' leading roles, about those distinguished projects. And so what you would recommend to anyone applying for a visa like this is that you have to do the best that you can to really educate the immigration officer, and that's what we ask our clients to do, is educate us so that we can educate the immigration officer, because not only are they not in your field, they're generally not going to do any independent research about your past projects. Now, the officer does often research the future work plan to see whether they consider these future projects to be distinguished. But when it comes to past work, very often the officers will pretty much just sort of trust what we're telling them. And indeed, that's why we need our clients to not be modest when it comes to an application like the O1 or the NIW or the EB1. We need as much information as possible about why these accomplishments show this extraordinary ability. So your accomplishments are really the only objective criteria by which an officer can evaluate your extraordinary ability. So an O1 application consists of a few specific sort of parts. There's a portfolio, and an O1 portfolio is often very voluminous, but we have to essentially prove our client's leading role. So that can be proved through invoices, emails, press. But the fact is that a lot of our clients working on creative teams may not have a lot in the way of contemporaneous proof. We understand that if you're working for a firm, that the firm may not have an interest in sort of promoting the work of a junior architect or architectural designer. They're about promoting their firm, their principles. So the fact is that there's two things that we would recommend is, number one, try to get the press that you can now. And sometimes that involves hiring a publicist. So again, if the firm is not doing anything to promote your work, well, that's pretty common, but that may mean that you should reach out to people. If you don't like to do self-promotion, that's true about so many of the creatives that we work with. People tell me I'm focused on my work. I'm focused on my art. I'm not trying to be some sort of influencer. But the fact is that press is crucial to these applications, and specifically for the EB1, which most of our clients, once they get the O1 visa, they're hoping to move on as soon as possible for the EB1. And to get the EB1, having that personal press becomes much more important. So if we get an EB1 RFE, a lot of times it will say, yes, there's press about the applicant's work, but there's not enough about the applicant themselves. So it's never too early or too late to start working on that. And indeed, for our clients who don't like to do self-promotion, that's what publicists do. They, farm out an article about you, set up an interview with you. And so another part of the calculus for an EB1 is that they want to see what's called sustained claim. So if all the press about an applicant's work is right before the EB1 I-140 is submitted, then immigration can say the applicant doesn't really have sustained a claim. So that's why, getting press is part of this. And again, press about your projects constitutes your press. Press doesn't only have to mention you personally. Now, another way to sort of prove a leading role is through letters of recommendation. So that's another part of the process. And so, again, generally these letters should come from industry leaders who are, qualified to give an expert opinion about the applicant's work. Now, some of our clients who are architectural designers may have work that crosses over into other disciplines like interaction design, product design. And so sometimes our clients might want to go with a job title like multidisciplinary designer, interdisciplinary designer. That's fine. And so that can decide who will be signing these letters. So again, we would certainly recommend trying to find the most prestigious and acclaimed people. And they can be foreign, they can be from the US. Sometimes people assume that only Americans are suitable experts for an application like the O1 or the EB1, and that's not true. So experts can come from anywhere in the world. So again, the sort of The past eligibility when it comes to the O1 visa is about proving the leading roles, and that can be through the portfolio, through letters. Now, there's also a future component to extraordinary ability, which goes to sponsorship. So when it comes to O1 visa sponsorship, you have the option of being sponsored directly by one firm. That's a sort of traditional employment-based visa scenario, like an H-1B, like an E, like an L. Most people who are on an employment-based visa have a single company that they can work for. The O1 visa is more free than that. And one of the ways you're allowed to work with more than one company with the O1 visa is through what's called a concurrent O1. So you could have an O1 through two different firms at the same time. That's totally allowed. Again, that's what some people do. And especially that can be the case if the firm insists that you have a visa through them. So indeed, a lot of firms say, if you're going to have a visa to work with us, it has to be sponsored by us. And if that's what they want, that is their prerogative. Now, another way to work for more than one employer is through what's called an agent sponsor. And indeed, that's a very popular option because an agent sponsor allows you to essentially add jobs after an application's approved. Now, an agent sponsor can be any person who's either a US citizen or a green card holder, or it can be a company. And this agent sponsor is not like an agent for an actor or a model. It's not someone who's negotiating a fee for your work or taking a percentage of what you make. What this agent sponsor would be doing is acting as an agent for service of process. And again, it can be any person who's either a US citizen or green card holder. So it could be your aunt or your uncle or your friend. So it doesn't have to be somebody who's in your field. It's nice if they are, but it's just not required. Now, on top of the agent sponsor, what you would need to have this sort of more free type of sponsorship model is you need two future offers and an itinerary of engagements. So the O1B creative visa allows you to add jobs that they need to be appropriate jobs under your O1B job title after the application's approved. So this can be sort of a hedge against a layoff situation where otherwise you would have to find another job and file another application within 60 days of the layoff. If you have an agent-sponsored O1, it's not quite as strict. And also you can add jobs and sort of pursue your professional and creative goals, which can help get closer to an NIW or an EB1. So indeed, a lot of our clients go with the agent-sponsored O1. Now, among our creative clients, the most likely to be directly sponsored by a single firm are indeed architects and architectural designers. A lot of times, the company will insist, or, clients just say, I'll be very happy just working with this one firm. So again, you have these options for sponsorship when it comes to the O1. So again, the elements of the O1 are proving past eligibility and future eligibility through sponsorship. And I think maybe I've said too much already. Maybe I'll just stop there for now.
No, that was a great introduction, Michael, for what we're going to discuss later on. Thank you so much. That's pretty much a 101 on visas.
So I'm gonna have to put these back on.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Now I can.
We can hear you good now, so that's good. So yeah, no, that was very, very informative. I see there are questions already, but we're gonna let that for the end. I want to switch now to the O1 case, and I want to ask maybe Samira first to share with us what was your experience with that process, and what can you share with the audience on how you build your strong case for getting the O1 approval?
Sure. So I got my O1 approval last October, so October of 2024. And to give you a bit of a background, I came to the US in 2019 on an F1 visa to pursue my master's in urban design. And then as I was applying for the H-1B, I thought that it would be a good option to sort of look at alternative paths just in case the H-1B does not get picked, because like Michael mentioned, it's a lottery-based visa. That is when I came across O1B as an option for designers. And I read online as much as I could, like all of us do as the first resort. And I came across the lines that, okay, the O1 is the Einstein visa. So those words were like, okay, I'm not that smart. I'm not going to get it. So I pursue it. But after reaching out to a few people who've gone through the process, I realized that okay. It's about how you explain your story and how you put forward your case with the proper evidence. So, like Michael mentioned, there are a lot of different categories that your work needs to fulfill, like press, it could be publications, it could be your project impact. So all of these different things. And I think as architects, we are very well positioned to sort of qualify all these criterias, because as architects, we end up working on different types of projects, right? So our projects have a lot of public recognition and can be very high impact. So I think when it comes to building your portfolio, it is very important to know the type of projects that you pick for the portfolio. So for example, if I have experience in residential architecture, in designing a wastewater treatment plant, an airport, a hospital, I would not pick up the residential project, because even if it might be a very beautifully designed building, it is meant for a family. So essentially, your work is only impacting a family. And as opposed to, say, if I pick up the wastewater treatment plant, it might not be the most beautiful building. It might be a very functional, very boring looking building, but the user case is what you have to highlight in that. For example, you could demonstrate how many gallons of water it processes every day. You could demonstrate how many residents it serves. Or if you go with, say, an aviation project, then you could highlight how many passengers fly through the airport. So it is essentially how you highlight the impact of your projects with the correct evidence. So what I struggled with for a bit while putting together my portfolio was sort of was putting together the right kind of evidence. So for example, I did not know that this is a path that I would be pursuing in the future. So um, uh, a lot of firms have this policy where the emails get wiped out after a certain amount of period. So that meant that I lost documentation for projects that I had worked on, which meant that I had to sort of reach out deliberately and gather that evidence. Michael brought up a very fair point that a lot of creative professionals do not engage in press for themselves. I had that issue as well. So I had to deliberately sort of reach out and make sure that my name is highlighted as a designer, because that is also very necessary in order to prove that you are a designer of extraordinary abilities. And when it comes to putting together the portfolio, what really helped me was sort of picking a few projects that have a very high impact. And then what I did was I sort of categorized them in 4 parts. So the first part was the client information and statistics, because as architects, we work for clients. So if your client is, say, an airport, which is a very influential airport, then all of those statistics can help me build my story. So the first would be to highlight the importance of the client or your project. The second one would be to sort of explain the exact scope of design. So what exactly was your role? Because as architects, we work in teams. It's going to be the work of the firm at the end of the day. But what was your role on the project? In what capability did you serve? So that would be the second part. The third part that I put together was the proof of evidence. So this could be any email chains that you're copied on. It could be your pay stubs. It could be even a Teams chat where your team is happy with your work and your supervisor's praising you for coming up with a really nice solution, because that counts. It could be any construction admin documents that you've signed, provided they're not confidential, of course. And then the final part would be the design development. So this is where you would actually show what drawings you've worked on, what modeling you've worked on. So it need not be pretty renders, because like Michael mentioned, the officials who are going to approve the visa need not have an architectural background. So it's basically a lot of effort into sort of telling your story in such a way that proves to the officer that, yes, you know your stuff very well, and what you do, the work you do, reaches out to people and helps people, a lot of people. So, yeah, I think if you are considering O1, my advice, my lessons from my story that I would tell you is to first keep track of all that you're doing, documenting it very well, because it's a lot easier if you have everything in hand. Then it's just about presenting your story and your case, and also to sort of understand the areas that you lack in. So, for example, if you don't have press, if you don't have publications, then sort of actively working towards the fields that you lack. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Samira, for sharing your journey. I would like now to give the room to Dorota. I know, Dorota, you got your O1 just recently. So can you share with us what was that process and what advice would you give the attendees today?
Sure. Thank you, Graciela. So, hello everyone. Actually, it's an honor to be here today among so many fellow architects. I didn't know there's gonna be so many of us. I'm very surprised. Like, it's actually, again, it's an honor. So, my name is Dorota, and I'm originally from Poland, where I finished my studies. I finished landscape architecture and architecture and urban planning over there. Right after I finished school, I moved to the US. Like in the meantime, actually, I was able to come here for my exchange program. So I was an exchange student in Knoxville, Tennessee. So then when I completed my degree in Poland, I moved to New York right away and tried. So even though I was just on a tourist visa, I was able to find a great company who decided to sponsor me. So that time they were like, okay, keep going, like tell us what visa you need, we're gonna support it. So it was my first time research. It was 2013 when I was for the first time looking for any type of visa options. At that time I was able to gather the information, and I got my obviously with the sponsorship of my that time company, my first visa. It was an internship visa, and after about month and a half, 2 months, they offered me a full-time position, and they're like, okay, again, it's another point for you. What like how are you gonna do it? So that time I researched myself, and like I was reading like what are the employment options are, and that's how I got to know about H-1B visa. So I got my first H-1B in 2014, and I was exhausted in about 5.5 years, switching companies a couple of times. Then in 2020, I decided to take a leap, and I moved to India for 3 years. I worked in India. I had another employment visa over there. So then about a year and a half ago, I came back to the US. And yes, that's when the trouble started, because thinking that again I'll be able to pursue my H-1B visa, I got to know that no, like these days it's not exactly the same story as it was in 2013. And now it's basically a lottery system, so I can piggyback right on Sumita's talk. So it's not so easy time-wise, H-1B these days. So I panicked, and I was not sure actually what to do. So obviously I started researching. And in the meantime, I was lucky enough, I got to know that my former colleague, and now one of the two partners of the company, they posted on social media that they're actually looking for architects. I contacted him, and this is how I got my interview, and they wanted to have me on board as soon as possible. And again, the visa. Then what happened was, so Frank, my now boss, he introduced me to Graciela, our moderator. And again, I was lucky enough. Graciela took me under her wings, and she introduced me to Carolina, who recently got her O1. He's also a fellow architect. Then Carolina was able to tell me all of the pros and cons, what's the whole procedure, how did she get the O1 visa. She introduced me to Michael, our attorney, who became later on my own attorney, for a visa. So I had my first interview with Michael. It was very tough because the interview just tells you yes and no, yes or no. Either he's going to quickly review your professional background, your resume, and will tell you if it's enough to basically be able to proceed towards the O1 application. So I was lucky enough, the background was strong enough, and we moved forward, and that's how I got my O1 visa. It's going to be about 8 months from now, from the time I got my O1 visa. So what can I say? Again, I think that Sumera was like so much spot on with the requirements and with the hardships. What you need to know is the evidence part. I think that this is something that strikes you right away. It's you feel that you have it because, of course, you worked on so many great projects. Of course, you had a high-end position, but to prove it is another story. You need to have your name basically in all of the documents that you'll be presenting to immigration. So whenever there is a press release, very often it's only the name of the company. It's a great project, it's an award-winning project, but it's only the name of the company. Your name, like the farthest you can have, is the name of the owner of the company, or yeah, or the company owner, or you're just somewhere as a staff, which is very brief. So you need to keep searching further. You need to get into emails. You need to get into any type of documents related to certain projects that you choose that will support the fact that you actually participated, and on top of that, that you support that you participated on the higher level. So the higher position you were taking over the particular project, the better for you. If you were overseeing, if you were dealing with the clients, if you were managing the project, that's what actually the immigration is looking for. So that's the first part, the hardest part, I would say, the evidence. So keep, like Sumera said, keep track, choose the best projects. And actually, there's one thing I can add here. I've added actually a couple of residential projects. They, though, were pretty highly publicated in media. They're published in pretty high-end magazines. Basically, they're houses of celebrities, but it still counts. So the size of the project is not as important, but the way you present it, that counts. Yeah, I was also lucky to participate in higher scale projects like airports, smart cities. So it's great to also obviously showcase that even though you were not overseeing the entire project, but if your participation was important enough, put it, add it. And so that's first thing, evidence. Then you need the letters of recommendations from high-end professionals. It doesn't have to be your supervisor, it doesn't have to be your boss. Like it can be also the counterpart. It can be any type of high-end stakeholder that you're working with. Whoever is going to be able to tap your bag and say, yes, like I'm writing a letter for you to tell the immigration that you're great enough, that's the person that actually you're looking for. And another advice, build a strong network. It's like I'm 100% proof of it. Like one point led to another, one great person led to another. And even though I was like, after I think I mentioned, like I had to go through a couple of visas, and every single visa was the one that I had to research the information on my own. The information that you're going to get from your professional network, there's nothing like that. Like there's nothing better than that. And be relentless. Embrace the leadership. Find your own ways. Find your own voice. Keep going. Like keep researching and trying to put yourself with your own voice in different types of projects. So that also will lead you maybe to create some kind of great publications. Speak about yourself in these publications. Ask people to interview you. Then you'll be able to tell your story over there, and then you'll be able to put it in the O1 application. So yeah, I believe that that is the collective impact. It's not only evidence. They're not only the points that you need to strictly put in O1 and like you're gonna try to grasp it the very last moment. You can actually build this case like really looking forward to try to obtain a visa in a couple of months in advance. So think about it and keep those points in your pocket.
Thank you, Dorota. Those were great tips for everyone. Now I want to talk about Rufe green card process.
Great. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm excited to share my journey here for EB1. So back in 2021, I was very desperate in terms of the green card process for multiple reasons. I have been working in as a sustainability consultant for many years after graduation, but I always wanted to teach on the side. I realized with my H-1B, there are so many limitations, and it kind of, has I would say has a challenge also from career perspective in terms of career growth. At the same time, I was pregnant with my second baby, so I wanted to take a longer maternity leave, but I also realized there are so many limitations with H-1B. So I do have a very strong motivation to get my green card sooner than later, and I wanted to share a little bit about that at the end of what I shared. So the long story short, I started to kind of look into the EB1 option because I know that's a fast track option. However, I do have limiting beliefs and misconceptions for EB1 visa for many years because I thought that's only for the PhD with paper or citations and not for architects. And two, I do have a very strong motivation and going all in for that. I reach out to almost, I would say 20 attorneys, but none of them really think that I do have a chance. They say, okay, I don't think you're qualified for this right now, but I didn't give up. What I did, I spent, I think I would say almost a year to kind of looking into the EB1 criteria and trying out different profile building opportunities and career opportunities. And now looking back at my journey, I feel so fulfilled through the process, not just for green card, but also how much it aligns with my own career development and how having this framework and guideline helps me achieve what I also wanted to achieve in my own profession. So I think that's such a rewarding journey, and I do encourage everyone to look into that just as a way to grow your career as well. So back to the EB1 visa, and I think as Michael already mentioned, some of the criteria is for extraordinary ability, which sounds a little bit too intimidating. But most important is, if you look at the criteria just by USCIS website, they are talking about meeting at least 3 out of the 10 criteria, which can be, award, publications, membership, original contribution, leading critical role, scholar articles, showcases, high salary, commercial success. Some of them may not even apply to our profession, but there are, there are opportunities that you can target as an architect. And what I learned throughout the process is also in terms of there are so many PhDs getting the EB1 visa, right? Because they are doing something really innovative. And for architects, what I found throughout the process is the most important is not to treat the visa as a checklist to say, okay, let me see how I can meet this criteria and that criteria. How can I can meet 3 out of the 10. That is important at the end of the day when you put together the application. But if I were to give advice to someone who isn't there yet, and I think the most important is to really focus on your key contribution, like to build a strong career foundation first, because at the end of the day, it's not about the checklist, but it's about who you are as a profession. Like if you're, if there's anything that makes you stand out in your field, if you're advancing some of the technologies or maybe some of the design methodologies, or if you have make a significant impact in the field. And what I think is the most important is not to treat the visa as a checklist, but really focusing on the building the strong foundation. Because if, like we are all architects, without a foundation, the building will fall, no matter how fancy the interior decorations are. So I think that's what let me just keep an eye on the time, by the way. So yeah, that's what I learned through that process. And I encourage everyone to really find maybe it's your niche as you going through your career journey, because that really helps you stand out at the end of the day. Architecture is so broad. I mean, there are so many different types of architecture, and you wanted to find your position, you wanted to find your voice, you wanted to find your influence in a particular field. So I guess my advice is more from is kind of looking back and then journey, not so much on the final process. I think Dorita and Samita has shared a lot of very helpful tips, but it's more about getting there. And I think I learned so much from that process, and I just really passionate about sharing this. If I were to maybe summarize 3 key advice for people who are considering EB1 journey. And I think the first one is to kind of find out your why. You wanted to have a strong motivation because that brings you forward. You wanted to set the right mindset, mindset in the beginning as well, and kind of letting go of the limiting belief. And one thing kind of just to add here, when I decided to go all in for EB1, what I realized is that I also have nothing to lose, because it still helps with my career. And even when I spent 2 to 3 years to enhance myself, it might still be faster than when I go through the EB2 or the EB3 visa. So that's the first advice. And the second will be, you also wanted to map out the right strategy, because you could spend years writing a paper and getting the citations, but that's not the fastest or most effective way or the path that aligns well with your architecture career. So you wanted to figure out what might be also the right strategy to get there as efficient as possible and spend your time and efforts on the most important tasks. And the third advice is more about committing to consistent efforts. It could be more from career perspective. It could also be, multiple aspects when you're building your career and finding different profile building opportunities. I definitely have the motivation, and there will be lots of efforts involved in the process, but being at the end of the process, I mean, you will be thanking yourself for putting the efforts out there. So yeah, I hope this is helpful, and happy to answer additional questions from the chat later.
Thank you so much, Rufe, for sharing your path. I have a few questions in the chat, and I think most of them are for Michael. But before we answer those questions, Michael, from all your experience, helping professionals obtaining these type of visas, can you give us some examples of what are the common mistakes and how to avoid them? Like if you have like 1 or 2 things that you see repetitive that people make mistake, and how can we maybe point them out so people can understand what they should not be doing?
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not sure that I would characterize anything as a mistake, but one thing that Dorota mentioned is that, it's true that, projects that may not get much in the way of press attention are not necessarily projects that are going to help towards specifically an extraordinary ability visa like the O1 or an extraordinary ability green card like the EB. So, let's say that you're designing, a home for a high net worth individual who doesn't want publicity. Well, you're not going to really be able to use that towards your application because there's not going to be publicity, right? Now, on the other hand, there was I think Samita mentioned, the sort of water treatment, sort of as perhaps not, the prettiest building, but it will get, press attention, and moreover, that's exactly the sort of thing that would lead to a very strong NIW argument to argue that I'm designing facilities that are in the interest of the United States. So you can imagine someone designing a very sort of fancy corporate headquarters in Dubai, and maybe that's not going to help towards an NIW, but it would help towards an O1 or an EB1. So I think it's a matter of you choosing projects, and sometimes that's out of your control. The firm gives you the work that they give you, right? So, I guess if you're specifically interested in an extraordinary ability visa like the O1 or the EB1, I'd say focus on getting the sort of projects that lend themselves to getting attention from press, to getting awards, that sort of thing. Whereas, if you're interested in the NIW, perhaps focusing on more sort of public facing projects are going to be.
Thank you, Michael. I'm gonna ask you again to please speak on another mic because
Okay, sorry guys.
I'm
Did
sorry,
you
but
say
we're
that again? Did
losing you.
anybody understand that? Okay.
No,
All right.
they did, but you cut off a lot, so it's
Okay.
it's difficult to understand. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. We have a few questions in the chat that I want to go through since we have still 11 minutes. So the first question is, when you talk about the agent sponsor type of visa, do the jobs need to be offered before applying for the process, or it will be when it is already approved that the job offer need to occur?
So when it comes to these job offers, they do need to be in existence when we file the application, because again, there is a past and a future component to showing this extraordinary ability. So to get the O1 specifically with an agent sponsor, you need to show a minimum of 2 jobs, because what you're telling immigration is, I'm an in-demand architect or architectural designer, and you can't expect me to work with just one firm, one client, because I've got more than one offer letter. Now, you're not restricted necessarily with only working for the firms or the clients who give you these offer letters. Imagine a dancer or a musician on the O1B visa. Imagine, and I speak to, performing artists all the time. And if I tell a performing artist, which I do, you're going to have to come up with a plan for the work for the next 3 years. As you can imagine, this is where a lot of people tell me, I'm not sure what I'm doing in 2 or 3 months a lot of times. And so again, as long as you're working under your O1B job title, with the agent sponsored O1B, you are maintaining your status. And by the way, that's what differentiates the O1B with an agent sponsor from an O1A with an agent sponsor. So with an O1A, you are permitted to have multiple jobs, but what you're not permitted to do is add jobs after the application's approved. And that's because immigration, they have decided that if you're a banker, an engineer, a professor, you should be able to tell them what you're doing for the next 3 years on the O1A side. Whereas on the O1B side, they expect that you're going to need to add jobs. And so that's why the O1B visa with the agent sponsor gives you that freedom to add jobs post-approval.
Okay, perfect. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? I have another question for you. So we have another question regarding proving evidence. And the question is if LinkedIn post will be counted as proof of evidence that someone is involved in a project.
Depends on whose LinkedIn post, right? So, if it's your mom's LinkedIn post, then right, no, it's not going to count, right? But if it's the firm's LinkedIn, then yes, it will. So that goes for a lot of social media, or and in LinkedIn is essentially social media. If Architectural Digest social, Instagram posts an image of something you designed, well, certainly we can use that in support of an O1 visa, even though it's technically social media. So again, we'll take what we can get as far as contemporaneous proof, but that is where letters can come in handy if we need to prove someone's leading role.
And since we're talking about proving evidence, there is a question that just appeared, which is regarding images. Not all the firms allow us to share images of projects. Sometimes we cannot even show them in our portfolios. So in that case, what other option can we do as evidence?
We do work with clients all the time who have, they're working on projects or for firms where the work is very proprietary, and, sometimes we can blur things, if the firm would allow us to submit a blurred image, we've done that before, certainly. So, on the other hand, at a certain point, we need proof, right? So if someone can't get us the proof that we need, well, it's just not going to be as strong of an application if we can't prove our client's leading role in distinguished projects.
Oh, okay, thank you. We have
And by
now
I frequently speak to architects and architectural designers who might tell me, listen, I designed this massive project and we didn't get selected. Can I use that? That's tough. A project really kind of has to come to fruition for it to be very useful in support of an application like this.
Understood. Now, regarding the EB2 NIW process, what is the difference between that one and the O1? Is it that it's easier or is it more challenging? Either way.
Okay, so there's the is an element of extraordinary ability. It's true, but it is also, it requires some extra elements, right? So, I think I mentioned if you're designing the corporate headquarters in Dubai, that may not be the strongest argument towards an NIW necessarily. It might be a strong argument in support of an O1 or an EB1, but if you're not able to show that this is in the interest of the United States, then basically it's tough to argue that the U.S. should waive the labor certification requirement for you for work that doesn't necessarily benefit Americans. Now, on the other hand, if your work is adding to contributing to the competitiveness of an American firm, you can make the argument towards an NIW. And another argument we can use towards an NIW is that your projects are in the public interest. So certain clients who might be designing healthcare facilities, for example, that's a strong argument. Now, one thing I just want to stress is that when it comes to an NIW, one of the most crucial things we look for at our firm is the license. So when you have a license, you're able to not just show your past work, but it's about your skill set and the fact that you can say, with my license, I can do all these sorts of things. So it's not just limited to your past work. So again, if we have clients who are on the O1 who are interested in the NIW or the EB1, which is most of our clients want to move on from the O1 to the NIW or the EB1, one of the things we want to see for the NIW is, again, a license if possible, or public facing works. And finally, there's another way that a lot of people are getting the NIW now, and that's through basically starting your own company and creating a business plan and showing that the firm that you're going to create is going to be in the interest of the United States. And that's an increasingly popular way to go.
Okay, thank you. We have a question specifically for Rafe. If you want to share with us if you use an attorney, I'm pretty sure you did. And if you receive any RFEs during the process, and how long did it take your process?
Sure, happy to share. First question, I did use an attorney at the end after I think I'm ready. Second question, I didn't receive any RFEs, luckily, and the entire application process took about, I think, less than 3 months because I was in a rush to get everything outdoor. I wait for about 8 months to get my final green card after the approval from the EB1, so hope that helps.
And for the record, what is the RFEs for someone that doesn't know what that means?
Yeah, so RFEs stands for requester for evidence. So when the USCIS officer is looking at your visa application and don't have a firm yes or no approval or rejection, they will often just reach out to get more evidence from your case. So once you submit evidence based on their requirements, is either they say, okay, approval, we think the additional evidence helps make us make a decision, or reject when they think it's not sufficient to demonstrate you meet the requirements. So.
Oh, okay, great. We have a question regarding license. So when you said that if someone has a license, that means, of course, your license in your home country or in another country that is not the US. Oh, you're muted. Michael, you're muted.
So sorry about that. So basically, when we say national interest waiver, the nation in question is the United States. So to argue that your work is in the national interest of the United States, what you'd ideally want to be able to show is that you can do this work in the United States. So again, if you have an international license, that does not mean that you can't get an NIW, but we would probably want to have some of those other elements, like evidence that you've done public facing works, that you're contributing to the competitiveness of a U.S. firm, or that you're starting your own firm.
And also, if you have right now an OPT, if you are in that OPT timeline, when would be a good time to apply for O1?
We in our office,
and so usually takes us around 3 months to prepare a solid O1 when it comes to drafting letters of recommendation, assembling a portfolio, the offer letters, deal memos, forms. We offer a rush fee. Immigration offers a rush fee, and as everyone probably knows, you can submit your application on the last day of the 60-day grace period, presuming you're on F1 OPT, and you can stay beyond that until your application is approved. Now, it's true that most people would like to have their O1 application approved right around the time the OPT expires, so that you have a continuous ability to work and not an extended period of time where you're allowed to be in the US but not work. So right now, immigration are basically estimating 7 to 9 months on their website as far as O1 adjudication, which is crazy. Most of our clients don't wait that long, but it's not responsible for us to offer an estimate other than what immigration's offering. So immigration does offer the premium processing, which guarantees a response within 15 business days. So, in short, and I don't want to make this an ad for our firm, but, again, our firm usually around 3 months. We can prepare it in 5 or 6 weeks if you want to rush with us. But most people don't rush with us. A lot of people are rushing with immigration because it's taking them so long. Now, it's also true that you can pay the expedite fee to immigration after you file with the regular processing fee. So if it's taking too long, you can always escalate to premium and give them that 15-day clock.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have another question regarding awards. Does it help during the study if the awards, I guess the question, were given during university time in any of the
not so much.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's more
I mean,
like
not so
professional
much.
awards.
Professional awards, that's what they're looking for. Professional accomplishments.
Okay, and we have a specific question regarding H-1B. If you can work part-time, less than 40 hours, on an H-1B with approved I-140 and maintain a legal status, or you are required to work the 40 hours.
I don't see why you wouldn't be allowed to do that. I mean, again, when it comes to super specific questions like that, I would need to see the documents to advise someone, but I don't see why that would be a problem.
Okay, perfect. Oh, wow. We have like 1 minute over our time, and we answer all the questions in the chat. So I think this was very good to listen to all of your experiences, Samira, Rufe, Dorota, and Michael. Your expertise and advice was really, really priceless. I'm sure that everybody is very grateful for all the tips and advice. I would encourage everyone to just keep in touch with us. You already heard about Samira, Rufe, Dorota, of course, Michael's office. So please keep the questions coming. If you have any other questions, our email is in the registration, and I think we should share it here in the chat too, just to any follow-ups. But I want to thank you, all of you, not only to our speakers, but everyone in this session. I think we would need more sessions of this to go over more details, but I appreciate your time, Michael, and Samira, Rufe, and Dorota. Any other final tips or
Oh,
advice?
thanks. It's wonderful hearing from everybody and such great questions. I'm very happy to have been part of this.
Thank you so much. And again, we recorded this session, so we're going to post this in our website. Michael, if you want the recording, you're more than welcome to share it from our website. We're going to also post it on our YouTube channel. We have a new YouTube channel where we're going to be posting everything that we're doing live. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sashki, for helping on the teams, and Gloria too. So I'm looking forward to meeting you eventually in person. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
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 Sashki, are you recording?
We should
Yes.
stop recording now, right?
I cannot
Yeah.
stop
Oh,
recording.
stop.
Oh, okay.